The Val Emmons Show, where freedom is cool and political correctness is for sissies.
Well, good evening, everyone. This is Val Emmons, and this is the Val Emmons Show. We start out tonight with, we're going to talk about immigration and borders. So the cost of our broken borders has hit Texas hard. Illegals and cartel criminals have flooded across the border like never before, assaulting ranchers and overwhelming law enforcement. It got so bad, as immigration website Stand With Arizona reported, that rangers in the Rio Grande Valley stocked up on AK-47s to defend their property and lives from border violence. And the state deployed expensive gunboats to patrol the Rio Grande as Border Patrol activities were cut back by the Obama administration. Fed up with the federal government's failure to stop the massive flow of illegal aliens, human trafficking, and drug smuggling, a Texas official took matters into their own hand, bringing all of it to a screeching halt along the Rio Grande section of the U.S.-Mexican border. In the Rio Grande Valley sector, nearly nothing moved in those 3 weeks. Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst told Breitbart News, "We shut it down. We had teams of Texas law enforcement in the brush, high-altitude aircraft, gunboats, and more. Our intel revealed that Gulf Cartel was growing frustrated with our 3-week effort." Dewhurst said that it all comes down to resolve and a willingness to spend the money necessary to get the job done. The border is an issue just about dollars and cents, the Lieutenant Governor said. This proves Texas can do the job the federal government has refused to do, to invest in the border and shut it down from illegal activities that are hurting Texas and other Americans. Texas will protect our own citizens and other Americans from the criminal gangs that are destabilizing our state and our nation. The dollars and cents were substantial. The plan, according to Dewhurst, was to do a 3-week operation with the Texas Department of Public Safety as the tip of the spear. He said the effort cost approximately $5 million each month. "We're fixing to appropriate more money," he said. I love how he says fixing. We're fixing. Texas. The lieutenant governor is seeking an additional $60 million to be approved by the state legislative budget board. Dewhurst stated that we started appropriating money to plug the holes that exist in the border. We've allocated hundreds of millions as a state since 2008, he added. Nearly $796 million of state money, not a dime of federal, has been allocated by the state of Texas to plug the holes in our border. This covers things like overtime for sheriff's deputies, equipment, and Texas Ranger SWAT teams, referring to the Texas Elite Rangers, an arm of the DPS. Wow. So although the state has for years reached out to federal government to step up its border security efforts, little has come of it. For 6 or 7 years, I've been calling on our congressional delegation in D.C. We need to at least double, if not triple, the size of our border patrol, Dewhurst said. The federal government is not providing the resources. We've grown convinced over the last year that this administration has no intention of securing the border. He added, "This is just unacceptable. We have a problem, and everyone knows it except for Obama and his administration. People in high levels of Border Patrol, organized crime groups in Texas are contracting with Mexican cartels to be their enforcers. The cartels' presence are in all of our major cities. 7 of the 8 Mexican cartels operate in Texas are using our state as a staging area for their operations across the U.S. During that 3-week period, Texas proved that the border can be secured. The bottom line is that we have to just show that we can shut down the border for X number of dollars," Dewhurst said. "We need to find the $5 million per month to make these operations continuous and replicate what we have just accomplished. If the feds refuse to secure our borders, or in Obama's case, want open borders to increase the flow of illegals, then it's up to the states to do it. Texas just showed us the way." Now that's interesting, right? Yeah, Texas has become the leader, haven't they? Go Texas. So Arkansas politics. Got to talk about that for a minute. KATV in Little Rock reports that updates are desperately needed at the Robinson Center, according to the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau. Tomorrow, you're going to get the chance to head to the polls for a special election to vote on a bond referendum to allocate previous existing tax dollars to fund a $70 million renovation and expansion project. If the bond referendum passes, you can forget what the Robinson Center looks like today. I go there so much I can't remember what it looks like today. Okay, this, to me, look, I support the symphony, I support all those things. I'm a member of the Symphony Orchestra Guild, and we support the symphony. But this money does not need to be put towards allocated towards renovating Robinson when we have a crime problem in our state. Well, at least in Little Rock and Pulaski County. We have beds overflowing and not enough beds in our jails. We're letting people go on a daily basis who really should probably be behind bars. And then we want to renovate a center that really is not that bad if you cleaned it up a little bit. The last couple times I went there, it was kind of dirty. It looked like nobody wanted to even clean it up. And it was paper and trash all over it. It wasn't like, I'm just saying, it is not that bad if you update it a little bit. You could update a little bit, but you don't need to spend $70 million. That's just insane. If the bond referendum passes, it's not going to be any new tax, but it's going to be taken away from the money that you've already paid in, I would suppose. Let's see what this entails. So the outside of the building will remain untouched. It's currently on the National Register of Historic Places, but the inside will practically be gutted. New balcony seating along with box seats, and they're not that bad now. I don't understand it. Modern interior finishes enhancement. This is not LA, people. Come on. Anyway, enhancements to acoustics, expanded lobbies, more bathrooms. The list of improvements goes on. Much of the music hall renovations, like dressing room upgrades, seriously, dressing room upgrades, and moving and expanding the venue's loading deck are to accommodate larger Broadway shows to come to Little Rock. Oh my God, Becky, a Broadway show! I mean, I'm all for the arts, but $70 million, people? Come on! It's about 74 years old, said Gretchen Hall, CEO of the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau. It hasn't had a lot of renovations in those 74 years, and so mechanically and functionally it's just become obsolete. It's not obsolete. It's just not a renovation, but expansion of the existing space. Currently there is a meeting space on the basement level of the Robinson Center, but with the new plan they will scratch that in favor of a modern ballroom and conference space, all encased in glass that will face the Arkansas River. Shh. Restaurateur Mark Abernathy, owner of Local Luna and Red Door, says he's all in favor of renovating Arkansas's largest performing arts center. What Abernathy is not in favor of is the way the city plans on funding the project. The bond referendum would use Little Rock's A&P tax money to pay for the expansion and renovation. The vast majority of this tax is from Southwest Little Rock, Midtown, and over 50% comes from West Little Rock and has for years, said Abernathy, yet all of it's being spent downtown. Abernathy says the A&P tax, also known as the hamburger tax, will be tied up in this project for the next 30 years. Not only is he upset about the timing of how long it will take to pay off the bond, but also the timing on tomorrow's actual vote. They scheduled the special interest single-issue election during the holidays. Very few people are going to go vote. But Hall says there's a reason for timing on a special election. The timing of this project has really been determined by the Broadway Bridge construction, said Hall. We want the two to overlap primarily for the congestion and the citizens of Little Rock. So we got a fancy-ass bridge, $20 million right there. Boom, throw that down for some colors. And then we have Robinson Hall that's, for what? For what? You think that's going to bring more people here too, Buddy Valines? Anyway, while the construction of the Broadway Bridge is going on, we want to be under construction as well. Hall stresses that the bond issue will not create a new tax, but simply utilize funds from a pre-existing tax. Why don't you give that money back to the people instead of spending it? Why don't you give me a check back at the end of the year? Hold $5, but still, that's not the point. Abernathy says the city should create a new tax to fund the project, which should then go away when fully funded. Okay, a new tax. No, dude, I don't like that idea either. How about we just do a little bit of upgrades to the center and leave it as is? Right now, our economy is not ready. Not ready. Okay, first of all, Broadway shows. We have to be able to sustain a huge Broadway show in this area. I think we need to be making it economically viable for companies and corporations to come here so that they bring folks that are interested in going to these kind of events at Robinson Center. Otherwise, how many events go on at this every year? Why don't those events pay for the building. I'm just saying, if you guys want this, why don't you guys make donations to fix the building up? For those who want this to happen. Early voting for the special election started last week and only brought in 554 cast ballots. The polls open tomorrow at 7:30 and close Tuesday night tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. For a list of polling locations across Little Rock, I'm going to put them on my page so you can find those at www.facebook.com/Val Emmons. And so now, moving on with more Nelson Mandela. So over the weekend, I was deleted from a certain person's Facebook page due to a comment I made regarding Nelson Mandela. You know, I merely asked Princellla Smith if she knew that Nelson Mandela was a communist after she praised him on her Facebook page. Princellla, I'm so sorry, is said to be a conservative, so I just wanted to make sure she was aware, you know, since she claimed that she idolized Nelson Mandela. She then deleted my comments and blocked me from posting on her fan page. She then made a comment stating the following. Hey guys, I know that usually I allow people to post political opinions on my wall whenever I post something, but I'm issuing a statement of warning to anyone who writes negative things about Nelson Mandela on my wall. I will block you. Keep your negative opinions about this man to yourself. My wall, my rules. I revere Mr. Mandela and his decision to keep peace when he could have incited mass unrest. Now he just stood by and let them... God, woman, really? He spent 27 years in prison unjustly and did not hold bitterness when he was freed. No, it was not unjustly. You need to take another look, princess. And he didn't have bitterness because he should have died. He should have been given the death penalty for his part in the tragedies and atrocities that took place under the A&K and the MK. Look it up, lady. Instead, she goes on to say, he became president of South Africa and worked to make the country stronger. Really? Stronger? Highest AIDS in the whole world? 50% unemployment? One of the most dangerous countries in the world? Johannesburg is one of the most dangerous cities. Rape, murder. Come on. They're not stronger. They're a third world country now. She goes on to say, there are some people who rise above politics and will be imprinted in world history as revolutionary positive figures. He stood for peace, love, and the empowerment of his people. That's why he allowed the ANC and the MK to put necklaces on them and, tires, and then they put gasoline in them and set them on fire. Their own people who disagreed with what they were doing. Yeah, that's he loved them. Yeah. And that's why all people of all races and all countries are honoring him today. It is why all 4 of the living past presidents in the U.S. are attending his funeral. Let this man rest in peace. If you feel that strongly about him in a negative way, then take it somewhere else. I have admired Nelson Mandela my entire life. See, so this is what's going to happen when if they ever find out there's life on other planets, like right now they're saying there's water existed on Mars. So this is what's going to happen. People are going to be in denial, and they're going to say, no, you didn't find water on Mars, because then that would mean that they're going to need to question the legitimacy of the creation by God. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on here. She's in denial because she thinks that what she was always told is true. And if it is, in fact, not true, everything she was told, that's just going to destroy her her life's going to be a lie. I've admired Nelson Mandela my entire life, and I will continue to honor him during his passing as well. Show some respect. So I replied to it. I don't remember what I replied. She deleted that too. And I just want to say that I disagree with deleting posts from people and blocking them from commenting because I want to hide the truth, especially regarding Nelson Mandela. I guess not everyone feels the same way, as we see. And I also think it's very childish to delete someone when they prove you wrong. My comment made her look as though she was supporting a communist, which she is, and she was not going to allow that, and I get that. But I won't lose any sleep over it tonight, but I wanted to state my case since she brought it up on the Dave Ellswick show today and let everyone know that was me. For one thing, most folks, I think Most people I talk to think she's a self-centered jerk anyway, and I just don't like her whole look at me attitude. Everything's always about her. I mean, we get that you'll call somebody out, Princellla. Anyway, also, I have had many people call me and message me to let me know how much they appreciate me pointing out the truth in this matter and not hiding it like most mainstream media and politicians have done. I mean, I get you can't explain it in a 30-second commercial, and so people just don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but someone has got to address it and bring the truth around for folks to form their own educated opinion on Mandela and his true character, and not the false portrayal of the media and the liberal left want you to believe. Ronald Reagan had Mandela on a terrorist watch list, and he was until 2008, for Pete's sake. Mandela was a member of the ANC and the South African Communist Party. His second wife, Winnie, she was heard saying, "We will get them with our necklaces and matchboxes." Come on, really? And he stood idly by and never, ever, left the ANC or the MK. He never left them. He stood by while they committed these atrocities, and he stood by them in the name of ending apartheid. Okay, so we're mad at all the white leaders, so we're going to kill all the black South Africans in the process who oppose what we're trying to do. That is so justified, don't you think? I read an article entitled Mandela the Great Statesman, and it explained that Nelson Mandela is a symbol, an icon, one of the world's most famous statesmen, recognized and revered by all. He dines with royalty, associates with the world's great leaders, and his opinion is sought and valued on the weighty matters. He has achieved an almost divine status in the world, equal to that of the Pope or the late Princess Diana. Most people on the left of the political spectrum would agree wholeheartedly with the above quote. But they run into an unexpected problem when someone asks why is he considered such a great statesman. The problem is that Mandela, apart from having a likable personality, has achieved next to nothing in his relatively short political career, which saw South Africa rapidly decline to the status of the world's most violent and crime-ridden country. And to add to the confusion, his greatest friends are communists and dictators like Castro and Gaddafi, Arafat, Hussein. His ex-wife, Winnie Mandela, who he quickly jettisoned when it became clear she was a considerable embarrassment to his political career, is a self-confessed advocate of terrorism and violence and has even committed murder herself. In his public statements and speeches, Mandela is always critical of the democratic countries of the West, but is nothing but praise for the remaining communist dictatorships of the world. He condemns mistakes and controversial policies of the West, but refuses to publicly condemn the genocides and brutal repression of current or former communist countries. He is supposedly a champion of freedom and democracy, the hero of oppressed people everywhere, but considers dictatorship like Cuba and Libya shining beacons of freedom and justice. Perhaps this is what makes Mandela such a revered statesman. A chameleon-like. He can advocate democracy and freedom as the highest ideals one day and hold up Cuba or Libya as shining examples for the world to follow the next day. And his admirers do not even notice the contradiction, or worse, they agree with him. Princess. Many of his apologists optimistically claim that Mandela may well have had communist leanings in his past, but that he has since put all that behind him and become a moderate in his political beliefs. They are perhaps unaware of his fulsome praise of the communist dictatorship as late as 1991, when he and Winnie went to what they called their second home in Cuba to celebrate the communist revolution with Fidel Castro. In his speech, Mandela said, "Long live the Cuban Revolution. Long live Comrade Fidel Castro. Cuban internationalists have done so much for African independence, freedom, and justice. We admire the sacrifices of the Cuban people in the maintaining their independence and sovereignty in the face of a vicious imperialist campaign designed to destroy the advances of the Cuban Revolution. We, too, want to control our destiny. There can be no surrender. It is a case of freedom or death. The Cuban Revolution has been a source of inspiration to all freedom-loving people." So Mandela's adulation of Castro in Cuba almost outshines that of his own admirers. In May of '90, Mandela, visiting America, went on record referring to Cuba. "There's one thing where that country stands out head and shoulders above the rest. That is in its love for human rights and liberty." What do you think about that, Princess? A week later in Libya, he lauded Gaddafi's comment to the fight for peace and human rights in the world, while an American, Mandela also made public statements while in America that amounted to support for violence and terrorism in the furtherance of political aims. In speeches in Harlem referring to 4 Puerto Rican terrorists who shot and wounded 5 U.S. congressmen in 1954, he said, "We support the cause of anyone who is fighting for self-determination, and our attitude is the same, no matter who it is. I would be honored to sit on the platform with the 4 comrades you refer to." Suitable comrades for Mandela indeed. He was himself originally incarcerated, not for his political views, but for involvement in 23 different acts of sabotage and conspiring to overthrow the government. He and his fellow conspirators of the ANC and the South African Communist Party were caught by the police while in the possession of 48,000 Soviet-made anti-personnel mines, 210,000 hand grenades. It is also interesting to note that in later years, Mandela was offered his freedom by none other than South African President Botha if he would simply renounce the use of terrorism. But Mandela refused to do this. He sent his daughter to tell them no. Winnie Mandela has been equally fulsome in her praise of communists and violence. In 1986, she was reported in Moscow's Communist Party newspaper Pravda, saying the Soviet Union is the torchbearer for all our hopes and inspiration and aspirations. We have learned and are continuing to learn resilience and bravery from our Soviet people, who are an example to us in our struggle for freedom, a model of loyalty to internationalist duty. In Soviet Russia, genuine power of the people has been transformed from dreams into reality. The land of the Soviet is the genuine friend and ally of all peoples fighting against the dark forces of world reaction. And again, at Munsieville, I can't pronounce tonight. On April 13th, 1986, she said, "With our boxes of matches and our necklaces, we shall liberate this country." Go look up necklacing on Google, folks, if you want to know what that is. It's horrifying, and don't have your children around when you play it. Referring here to her own specific brand of democratic political activity whereby anyone who opposed her would be bound hand and foot and then burned to death by means of a tire filled with gasoline being placed around the neck and set on fire. Has Mandela since changed his tune in any way? In September 2002, Mandela gave an interview to Newsweek, and the following summary gives his views on the situation with regard to the Iraqi crisis. "You will come to the conclusion that the attitude of the United States of America is a threat to world peace. The war against Iraq, is clearly a decision that is motivated by George W. Bush's desire to please the arms and oil industries in the United States of America. When there were white UN Secretary Generals, you didn't find this question of the United States and Britain going out of the United Nations. But now that you've had black Secretary Generals like Bortos, Ghali, like Kofi Annan, they do respect the United Nations. They have contempt for it. It is the men around them, Cheney and Rumsfeld, who are dinosaurs, who do not want him, President Bush, to belong to the modern age. The only person who wants to help Bush move to the modern era is General Colin Powell. No one will deny Mandela the right to hold views opposed to a war in Iraq, but he is here revealing his own racist attitude towards world politics. Only white leaders are a threat to peace, and especially so when there are black Secretary Generals of the UN. And in cases we don't get the message, he singles out the black member of the U.S. administration, Colin Powell, as the only exception. And one could add, when it suits Mandela's argument, the Egyptian Bortos Ghali suddenly qualifies as a black man. The race card is one that is always brought out by Africans when they lack valid arguments. Now, granted, I didn't write this. I'm just reading this article to you folks, so I'm not sure if I believe in that part of it. But I do believe he was a communist. And it has always been a standard ploy of the communist rhetoric. So, to Mandela's way of thinking, it is capitalist greed that is preventing the one world UN government. In February 23rd, or 2003, he was reported as saying, "If there is a country that has committed unspeakable atrocities in the world, it is the United States of America. Iraq produces 64% of the oil in the world. What Bush wants is to get a hold of that oil." And I said that during the war, too. I said that very same thing. Apart from displaying his communistic sentiments, Mandela here also reveals his ignorance of world economics. Iraq produces only 5% of the world's oil, not 64. He also makes no mention of the huge depths of money that Iraq owes France, Germany, and Russia, and that it is just possible that they are opposed to the war because they would likely lose debts paid. If Mandela opposition to the United States comes as a surprise to some, or are dismissed as an oppression, of particularly strong feelings about the Iraq crisis, we should note that Mandela is nothing if not consistent. His views are always anti-American and pro-communist, and always have been. In his book, The Struggle is My Life, a collection of his writings, we read the piece dated 1958. The people of Asia and Africa have seen through the slanderous campaign conducted by the U.S. against the socialist countries. They know that their independence is threatened not by any of these countries in the socialist camp, but by the USA, who has surrounded their continent with military bases. The communist boggery is an American stunt to distract the attention of the people of Africa from the real issues facing them, namely American imperialism. Oh, wow. So, anyway, I just wanted to read that because I think that it's telling that, he was a communist. And I've had some people call me up and tell me, that they appreciate me being out there about this and putting it out there while others are just hiding the facts. And I've had others call me out and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But the truth is truth, folks. And just because you don't believe the truth doesn't mean the truth is what it is, the truth. You can not believe it and it's still true. Anyway, I want to read you the introduction of the publication Mandela wrote titled How to Be a Good Communist. It's very interesting. A communist is a member of the Communist Party who understands and accepts the theory and practice of Marxism, Leninism, as explained by Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin, and who subjects himself to discipline of the party. The goal of communism is the classless society based on the principle from each according to his ability and each according to his needs. The aim is to change the present world into a communist world where there will be no exploiters and no exploited, no oppressor and no oppressed, no rich and no poor. Communists fight for a world where there will be no unemployment, no poverty and starvation, disease and ignorance. In such world, there will be no capitalism, no imperialism, no fascists. There will be neither colonies nor wars. In our own country, the struggles of the oppressed people are guided by South African Communist Party and inspired by its politics. The aim of the SACP is to defeat the nationalist government and to free people of South Africa from the evils of racial discrimination and exploitation, and to build a classless or socialist society in which the land, the mines, and the mills under a Communist Party government, South Africa will become a land of milk and honey. Yeah, that happened. Really? No, not. Political, economic, and social rights will cease to be enjoyed by whites only. They will be shared equally by whites and non-whites. There will be enough land and houses for all. There will be no unemployment, starvation, and disease. Unemployment's at 50 cents or 50%. Starvation's on the rise because of that, and the most people infected with AIDS live in South Africa. Workers will earn decent wages. They don't. Transport will be cheap and education free. I'm not sure on that one. I haven't checked that. There will be no pass laws, no influx control, no police raids for passes and poll tax, and Africans, European, coloreds, and Indians will live in a racial peace and perfect equality. I don't think they're living so perfect with one another right now. Their own race. The victory of socialism in the USSR, in the People's Republic of China, and Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, and Romania, where the living conditions of the people were in many respects similar and even worse than ours, proves that we too can achieve this important goal. I want you to just go back and listen to that again. So communists everywhere fight to destroy capitalist society and replace it with socialism, where the masses of the common people, irrespective of the race and color, will live in complete equality, freedom, and happiness. They seek the revolutionized society, and thus called revolutionaries, those who support capitalism with its class divisions and other evils, and who oppose our just struggles to end oppression, are called counter-revolutionaries. And we will necklace you. I added that. I have posted the rest of this work on my Facebook page, and you need only scroll through my post to find out more information regarding Nelson Mandela. And I think that you should. I think that you should share that information. That's why I'm doing it, because everyone's praising this guy, and he was a communist and who supported terrorism. I don't care what you say. Look at the facts, folks. Look at the facts. Check out my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Val Emmons, and send me a tweet at Val Emmons. Until tomorrow, good night.